but I appreciate it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Isaiah J. Poole. I am the editor of TomPaine.com and the websites of the Campaign for America's Future. And it's my pleasure to be the moderator for what I think is going to be an exciting panel. I have the pleasure of being with some people who I respect very highly. These are the people who, I've spent most of my career in mainstream media. I worked for several newspapers around the country as a reporter and as an editor, did local news, did national news, for a strange interlude, even did entertainment. And I've worked for some of the organizations that these guys are trying to kick in the butt. And I'm really glad that they are out there not only keeping people who work in my profession, my historic profession, honest, but they are keeping our entire political system honest as well. Let me introduce them to you, and then I've told them in advance to keep their remarks short, and so that we have ample opportunity to talk and dialogue. And when we walk out of here, the blogosphere is an incredibly important resource. It's an incredibly rich resource. We've already proved that the blogosphere, the progressive blogosphere, can be a catalyst for change if we know how to harness it and use its energy. These panelists are going to talk about their experience in doing just that. And I hope that many of you will walk out of here with strategies for continuing that pattern and even making the progressive blogosphere an even more potent force as we go into the future. We're going to go from my left to my right, and I would like for everyone in the audience to hold their questions and comments until the question period.
Personal request that those of you who are going to speak get close enough to the microphone that the voices are amplified, because not all of us have good hearing. Thank you.
We will do that. Chris Bowers is an editor at MyDD. He focuses on electoral analysis and political infrastructure, with a particular focus on the progressive blogosphere and the broader political ecosystem. He has been at the forefront of creating the Liberal Blog advertising network, very important. He has been involved as a creator of the Use It or Lose It campaign and the 2006 Google Bomb the Election campaigns. He's also the treasurer of BlogPack, which is another important organization that is working to provide financial support for the Netroots. He's also won a seat in the Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee. Next to him is James Dean. And he is the chairman of the one-year-old Democracy for America. He is the brother of former Governor Howard Dean, and he is committed to strengthening grassroots participation and the election of fiscally responsible and socially progressive candidates at all levels of government. He's worked on his brother's presidential campaign as well as the campaigns for governor and lieutenant governor, and he lives in Connecticut. Oliver Willis is the blogger at oliverwillis.com. He's been blogging since 2000, since before many of us even knew there was such a thing as blogging. And he's been profiled in a number of mainstream publications, including the Boston Globe. He's been on PBS. He is currently a member of the Technology and Online Community Department at Media Matters for America. another important organization. On his right, Jane Hampshire at firedoglake.com. Her work has also appeared in places like the Huffington Post, Alternet, the American Prospect. She also has a couple of books under her belt, Killer Instinct, and the films such as Natural Born Killers and Permanent Midnight. And she's also in Connecticut. I don't know what they put in the water in Connecticut, but...
Center of the political universe.
And on my immediate left, and always on my left, is Matt Stoller. He's also at mydd.com, and writes about progressive strategy. I've seen him at Tuesday group meetings that we have here in Washington, meetings of progressive organizations that strategize. And Matt is a very tough interrogator. One of the things that many people like, some people don't. He's also involved in Blog Pack and focuses his work on progressive coalition building, the mechanics of the right wing, and communications policy. We'll start with Chris, and I should note that both Chris and Matt will be leaving MyDD, and I don't know, Chris, if you want to talk a little bit about that and what your future plans are, but this will be a good time for you to do that if you'd like to break some news here this morning.
Okay. Well, we will be starting a new website, Matt and I, but we're working on the name right now, but we have the general idea and everything else set up, but more on that later. I'd like to get a little bit closer to the microphone first. I'd like to talk about, as sort of introductory remarks, 4 specific points that I think are key to any successful move from just blogging about a topic to where it moves into a successful campaign, to successful activism, or to just an agenda-changing discussion within the national political discourse. And the first point is that any successful blog campaign in terms of activism or in terms of media has clear defined goals. A lot of times you'll see bloggers or just general commenters on blogs make sort of broad claims like Democrats need to stand up for something. They need to take strong stands. But that's not really a point from which to start a successful campaign. You can actually, even when you have something that broad, you can say, okay, well, how do we make Democrats stand up for something? One suggestion would be to primary challenge them. And so, for example, in 2006, one of the most successful activism campaigns that the blogosphere was credited with or was heavily involved with was the primary in Connecticut, once again, the center of the political universe, of Ned Lamont versus Joe Lieberman. And the point of that was not just to defeat Joe Lieberman in the primary and unfortunately in the general election as well, but also to let Democrats know that you are accountable to members of your base, you are accountable to activists, you are accountable to members of your party. So any campaign needs a clear defined goal, a means of achieving even a broader concept like making Democrats stand up for something. But most successful blog activism has been a little bit smaller than that. It's been a little bit more narrowly targeted. Some examples would include getting Jeff Gannon removed from the White House press corps, which was a targeted campaign led by America Blog and John Aravosis. Or stopping John Bolton from being confirmed as UN ambassador, which was a targeted campaign led by Steve Clemens at the Washington Note. Or making sure that the Valerie Plame affair, Jane, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct terminology on that, to become far more prominent in the national discourse, and that's something that firedoglake.com and Jane Hampshire and many of the writers there were influential in making sure that that would happen. And so once you have your goal, you have to move from, clear defined goals leads to clear defined blogging, the production of clearly defined content. No one blog post ever changed anything. You need to have an ongoing campaign where you over several days and eventually over several weeks. One website or perhaps multiple websites will become the content hub that is focusing on that campaign, focusing on that topic that you can't find anywhere else. You need to produce regular, focused, and original content on that subject over a period of days, weeks, even months. One blog post is never enough, and you have to stay focused on your topic over a long period of time. And you need to become the place where the most influential people who are interested in that topic will all congregate, because you are the one who are, you're producing you are the best location for content on that topic, whether it's Gannon or Lamont or Plame or Bolton or whatever. Okay, so once you have your goals and once you have your campaign going, the next step is you need broad blogosphere buy-in, because as no one blog post is an island, no one blog is an island as well. And you're going to eventually need as many blogs as possible, not only recognizing that you're the content hub, but also starting to help produce new original content on that topic itself. It will increase the amount of buzz that's going around in the progressive blogosphere. And that's particularly useful because I don't think that there's any newsroom in America right now that doesn't read the progressive blogosphere. And so if you can create a blog swarm, a general blog narrative, then it will start going around the blogosphere, and you can start having indirect influence on larger established media. This was particularly useful for a campaign that I conducted called the Google Bomb the Elections campaign, where the goal of that campaign was to use search engine optimization techniques on 52 key congressional and Senate races around the country, so that when people in those districts were looking for information on the local Republican candidate, they would always find the most negative local news story written about that candidate. And it worked really well. We actually got about 700,000 people in district to read the most negative possible story about that candidate when they were looking for that candidate, which is about 5 to 8% of the electorate. And it only cost $500. So that was a case where it would not have succeeded unless a huge number of blogs bought in, because in order to make those articles go up high in Google rankings, that's actually the definition, is where you just need as many blogs as possible participating in that campaign. The most important thing of all, though, moving on to point 4, is that you can have Netroots buy-in, you can have you can be a content hub, and you can have clear defined goals. But for a blogosphere campaign to really succeed, and this is always the most difficult part, is you need extra blog support. You need surrogates in the national media, you need surrogates in the Democratic elected officials, important advocacy organizations to join your cause. It's almost impossible for the blogosphere to make a real dent in the national discourse on its own. For example, we were talking about Democrats should not be taking part in the Fox News debate for presidential candidates several times and over an extended period of time. But it only really started working when you had members of the Nevada State Democratic Committee complaining about it. They were useful surrogates. And then you had Democratic pollsters talking about it. And then eventually Paul Begala joined in and started saying that it was a bad idea for Democrats to join as well. So when you can have this broad blogosphere coalition, and then suddenly you have Democratic surrogates and progressive surrogates and outside organizations joining with you, then it's going to be hard to stop you at that point. But that's also the most difficult thing, because in the history of the blogosphere, it's always been very difficult to get people to take up our causes. But hopefully that's something we can change in the future. So this is not only advice for how you can have successful blogging campaigns, but how can other organizations help out bloggers, and how can we work together to really make a lot of change. So those are the 4 basic points I have, and I hope that wasn't too long, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
All right. Okay, thank you, Chris. First of all, 2 mea culpas, 1 to the rest of the panelists. I apologize for spilling the water all over the place, and if anybody gets electrocuted, I'll give you my card after this. And then second up, with apologies to Isaiah, I think we had a typo on there. We've actually been in existence for about 4 years, since 2004, so that's our bad, so my bad, actually. So I just wanted to, for the record, get that out of the way. And I want to just take a step back from this a little bit, just because I know some of you are aware of this, but maybe not everybody is. And this phenomenon that is the blogosphere, this entity that is the blogosphere, is the political discourse right now. We have been, if you're my age, which is 53, you have been in a one-way conversation about politics for most of your life, which most of my life anyway, which was watching a TV and watching somebody tell me stuff back. And this is, to me, a great celebration that we now have, that the American people have, a vehicle for political discourse. And you will see mainstream media or mainstream elected officials talk about this in terms of partisanship. And as everybody in this room knows, the definition of partisanship is somebody who disagrees with what you say these days. And honestly, what has evolved right now, and was I think pretty much in a constant state of evolution, is an entity that allows all of us in this room to get involved in politics. Democracy for America is about leadership development. It's about getting citizens into politics and facilitate moving them up the political food chain. But it's really started with a lot of these panelists up here who have taken the lead on giving people that opportunity to get involved and to share their views with others where they have not been able to do so before. And that is something that we have to celebrate. And it's also something that we're going to have to exercise some responsibility and ownership over so that others do not gain ownership and responsibility over that. And I'm thinking in particular issues like the net neutrality law, et cetera, et cetera. We have to be extremely vigilant. I think this is is the free market system at its finest, where in many respects it's a self-regulating medium right now, where people can choose to be a part of a blog or choose to be part of a different blog or choose pretty much however way they want to go with it. But as long as they're doing something, that's what's critically important to all of us here. So the third thing I just wanted to bring up, we celebrate this opportunity. We need to be a little bit responsible about what we're doing out there to make sure that we own, and the people and the taxpayers own this. And we also need to persevere, because I know all of you are up against great forces in the media who obviously are threatened by this two-way conversation that we haven't been able to have for many, many years. I applaud and very grateful to all of you for the work that you put into this, but all of us in this room need to be involved in this issue, and we need to be involved in blogging, and we need to especially persevere to make sure that it becomes what it really should be, which is the replacement for a one-way discourse replaced by a two-way or multiple-way discourse among Americans, so that we can have this discussion about candidates, have this discussion about the issues, and do the things that frankly we haven't been able to do. When I think about what has happened and what all of you up here have done, it's almost like the liberation of Eastern Europe in many respects from what we've been dealing with before, and again, the one-way communication that we've been having. So I really want to thank everybody here for your perseverance, and the panelists, and hope that all of us will be here for this and be involved with it, because our democracy is only as good as the extent that its citizens are really willing to be involved in it. And there's no better way and no easier way to do it than to be involved in some of these websites and blogs right now. Thanks.
Good morning. So this entire conference has sort of been about a celebration, and a well-deserved one after all the hard work all of you put in to create a more progressive America. The pushback is real, it's out there, and it's happening right now. And it's clear that bloggers have been a key part of that effort. We found great candidates, raised money for them, and helped them get them elected into office. The work of progressive bloggers have been so successful that the right is now envious. And right now, they're trying to replicate what we've been able to do with our candidates and our activism. The good thing is that they're failing miserably at it. They've got, groups like redstate.com, which is trying to knock off Daily Costs. They've got ABC PAC that's trying to knock off ActBlue, and they're not doing well because their leadership doesn't listen to them. And we've probably got at least one election cycle before they catch up to us, but they will. The conservative movement is in retreat, but it's not dead yet. And what I'd like to do is kill it. And the blogosphere is a key element in that action. And we're great at the activist elements of things. And we're great at raising money and awareness of candidates and lesser-known candidates and getting them funded. But I think where we're a little lagging behind is in disseminating ideas and opinions. And I think it's great to be focused on elections and the day-to-day, struggle, but the most important thing is the war of ideas. And that's where we really need to compete. Bloggers need to look at the news, the vast array of information and resources that are being generated by progressive organizations, and sort of explain to our readers what it all really means on a day-to-day, person-to-person basis. And those organizations also need to reach out to bloggers, and not just the top 1%, who, I love the top 1% bloggers, but the guys on the bottom 1% are just as important, and those of us in the middle as well. But anyone can do this. That's the thing. I don't think there's really any barrier to entry here. I can do it. All you have to do is be able to speak in a semi-coherent manner and write a blog post. They're able to take ideas, amazingly stupid, harmful, and dangerous ideas, and push them into numerous media outlets and get them into accepted public discourse. We've got the good ideas, but we're not pushing them out as well as we could be. They've got a food chain that works. Basically, it starts at the right-wing think tanks. The right-wing bloggers start talking about it. It goes into talk radio. And then it gets into Fox News. And then the mainstream media is all of a sudden discussing this great controversy that no one ever heard of before. So if we're talking about real issues that real people care about, and we continue to do it on a continual basis, in addition to the activism that's already going on, I think we can accomplish even more than we have so far. We've learned that in the last few years that we just need to show up in order to do this. For a long time, our side just wasn't showing up for the battle. We've started showing up and we're winning. So imagine if we actually try. If we try, we're going to win like we did last year. We'll take back the White House and the conservative movement will be dead. Like dead. Really dead. Anyone can do this. All you need is an internet connection, and you can be part of the left-wing noise machine. Thanks.
Okay, testing. Is that loud enough? We're good? Yeah? Okay. My name is Jane Hampshire, and I run a blog called Firedog Lake. I'm really excited to be here today, and if anybody read the recent New York Times article on chemo brain, let me just say up front that after 7 rounds of chemotherapy, it's a fact, not a myth. So if I momentarily lose my train of thought today, bear with me. I really needed to be here today. I started Firedog Lake about 2.5 years ago, and we plugged along for a year with maybe, at the upside, 500 people a day visiting. We jockey for position between the 3rd and the 5th biggest liberal blog. On an average weekday, we'll see 80 to 100,000 people a day. And from the very beginning, what really challenged me to start the blog and really put a lot of energy into it was the potential that it had for bringing people together in the same way that the right had been able to use the churches to organize in, Ralph Reed, the Christian Coalition. There wasn't any real answer to that after the right had done such a good job of destroying the message machine that the labor unions sort of served. And the netroots are very hospitable to a liberal message. We can create a community there, a two-way community where we put out ideas, as Oliver's talking about, but people talk back to us, they bring us their ideas, and they get tested in the marketplace of ideas and kind of vetted. And the right, I think, will always have trouble replicating online what we do because they are top-down, they are authoritarian, it's not in their nature to open up a comment section and listen to their readers and take feedback back from them. An early experience that we had on Firedog Lake came during the confirmation of Alito. And I have to say that as someone who was writing on the blog, we just kind of accepted that the battle was lost. The guy was going to get on. Nobody was going to push back. And our readers would not let us do that. One guy in particular, he wrote under the name of Prof, an anonymous guy, just hung in there in the comments and said, why aren't you doing something? It doesn't matter if we win or lose. We have to make a statement. And so we started telling people, along with Eshatan and other blogs, Digby, my DD, to fax their senators and tell them this was not acceptable. And we sent so many faxes, we took down e-fax. And there wound up being a meeting amongst the senators Democratic senators behind closed doors that this had made them all very uncomfortable. Thank you, Matt. I think you're the one that told me that with great glee at the time. And the guy got on the bench and we're suffering the consequences, but it was what we could do at the time. Since that time, we've continued to grow. During the last election cycle, we raised over, through Fire Dog Lake, our column, Blue America, Howie Klein, we formed a PAC, the Blue America PAC, and we raised over $500,000 for progressive candidates. And we didn't go after the people who had the likelihood of winning. We went after supporting the people who believed in what we believed in, like Ned Lamont. Again, our community said, we really want to fight this battle, this Ned Lamont battle. This is important to us. And like so many in this room, Tim Tigueras, Jim Dean, I physically went to Connecticut and, backed a candidate when the powers that be within the Democratic Party were saying they were accepting the Beltway wisdom, such as it is, that any Democrat who mentioned the war or tried to run on it would lose. And Ned went out there and Ned challenged that amongst a field of candidates who were very afraid to step forward and defy the D-TRIP and the DSCC and do that. And Ned won the primary. And I don't think he's ever gotten credit for how much that changed the final election, the 2006 election, because suddenly candidates were liberated from having to toe that party line. And they went out there and they ran against the war and they won. And candidates like, Tammy Duckworth, Diane Farrell, who had sort of mixed messages on this, did not win. And candidates that we supported, that we were surprised, actually. We backed them because it was the right thing to do. Jerry McNerney, they went out there and they won. And it was really, really gratifying. But a change came over our community during that time, and I just wanted to point it out because I think it's really important to what everybody is being here today, trying to do here today, and that is to build a progressive community, a progressive messaging machine, a progressive infrastructure. One of the things we did early on was back a candidate named Ciro Rodriguez in Texas, and we raised a lot of money for him. And when he lost against Henry Queller, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The people in our community were really demoralized. I mean, Poch Kutek was there, a shrink, and we had him on sort of counseling people in the comments because they really felt like they had gone to mat for this guy, given money, and he lost. And he goes, how many times do we have to say, well, we fought the good fight? And it's like, no, you don't understand. This is what we have to do. So that's not happening this time. Somehow a change took place, and the candidates that we backed, like the fabulous Donna Edwards, like Victoria Wilson, like Angie Pacione, who lost last time by small margins, but are back again to run. Our community is going, yeah, right on. We are right there for you. They understand now that it takes time to back candidates, that you have to establish name recognition. We can give money, we can lose, but we can keep coming back. And that it's a wonderful sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that they're getting about being part of a process that I think has tremendous potential that we haven't had before, at least in the past 20 years. The final thing I'll mention that we did that I think is of significance on FDL was our coverage of the Scooter Libby trial. And that was really sort of the signature issue that took our blog into prominence. And if there, as Matt Stoller points out, if there is one person in the Bush administration that goes to jail over all of their myriad sins, it will be Scooter Libby. And I think that if you want to measure what the world looked, the sort of, what the landscape looked like before and after blogs. If you measure what happened during Whitewater and the distance that we came in Scooter Libby, that is the measure of it. Whitewater was a bunch of people in 1998 who screaming in front of their televisions who felt powerless. And the blogs gave them a way to come together and say, this makes no sense. Sue Schmidt can't put an article on the front page of the Washington Post anymore. That makes no sense, generated off of the fax machines of political operatives that destroy the Constitution and nearly take down a president. That isn't possible today. And I think we demonstrated that during the Valerie Plame case. Journalists were not able to unquestioningly accept what the White House spin was on this. We pushed back, and as Chris said, we didn't push back just one time. We pushed back every article, every day. And when we sat there in the courthouse for the trial, and we saw those journalists, we saw how sensitive they were to us fact-checking their stuff. And Marcy Wheeler, who did the live blogging, who deserves a round of applause. I don't know if Marcy's here. Was such an amazing repository of information, but what she represented was the institutional memory of the blogosphere that doesn't allow for that kind of spin to dominate the narrative anymore. We pushed back against Barbara Comstock. We pushed back against the right-wing noise machine that had been so successful, Dan Burton shooting watermelons. You know, we gave the prosecutor the space to try his case in the courts and not let it be tried in the press before he could do that. And I don't know what will happen from here. You know, common Beltway wisdom seems to be that somebody from the Beltway class isn't subject to the same justice by a jury of his, by a jury of his peers that the person in Arkansas would be. But the person in Arkansas seems to understand that. And I think that that's a wonderful tribute to the blogosphere and what we've been able to accomplish. So thank you very much for being here today, and I'll turn it over to Matt Stoller.
By the way, when I was clapping for myself. I just want you guys to know that. Do we have any candidates in here, aside from, you got Darcy over there? Anyone else?
Donna.
Donna? Sean O'Donnell. All right, great. I like to sit in my apartment and write on the internet, since it's really fun. But running for office is really hard. So kudos to all of you. It's really difficult. So they are the people who will carry our ideas into power. So it's really important to know who they are, acknowledge them, support them, and help them. They're great people, and they're really putting in 20-hour days for all of us. And I'm going to talk about ideas and where they live. But first, I want to say that I wish we could take credit for the 2006 election victory, or part of the credit. But that credit has to actually go to the slogan, "Together, America can do better." So, we're done here. So I sort of date the beginning of this whole thing, and I'm not going to talk about blogs because blogs are sort of just one symptom of what we're dealing with. But I date the beginning of this whole kind of collective outrage about what's happened to our politics and our media to 1998, when Move On was founded, really by just ordinary people, led by Silicon Valley millionaires, but ordinary people mostly. And in response to a series of institutional breakdowns of the political system, the Democratic Party, elites, and the media itself. And what started happening in 1998, and then what we saw happen with the recount and the Iraq War, in the Kerry campaign, and the bankruptcy bill, and Alito, and just like all of the awesome things that we've seen in the last few years, is people got really upset and started to do something that we haven't seen in the left for 40 years. Millions of people started to argue for left-wing ideas. And I think it's really important to understand what we're doing. We're arguing for ideas, we're not arguing for issues, and we're not arguing for cults of personality. And it's a change in our political structure. So I'm going to walk through one such fight, about how we argue for ideas, with the hopes that we can kind of understand exactly what we're doing and make it better and faster. Because ideas live in institutions, and they live in our media system, they live in our churches, well, not my churches, but they live in our unions, in our corporations. That's where they live, in our suburbs, even in our gated communities, in our inner cities. That's where our ideas live. And changing our ideas means changing those institutions. It's not about necessarily just writing books, although writing books is an important part of it. So let's take something that all of us care about, which is the role of media in a democracy. All of us believe, well, I believe, and I think most of you believe, that media should be honest, it should be open, it should be fair, it should be skeptical of power. No matter which party is in power, it should be skeptical of power. And it should help the public make decisions. Well, we can say that, but how do we actually embed that in institutions? Well, I think we've seen how to do that with something that several of us have mentioned, which is the Fox News fight. I mean, the Scooter Libby trial is a great example, and I would phrase it a little more vindictively, that at least we got one of them. But let's take the Fox News fight, since that's something that I know more intimately. Which is, February, I got, a reader sent me a news clipping saying that the Nevada State Democratic Party had cut a deal with Fox News to host the Democratic presidential debates. This is one of the ways that the right wing embeds their ideas into our institutions, into the Democratic Party itself, but also into the media, that propaganda and an open, honest, fair media are the same thing. That's what that statement was. So what we said, and it really kind of hits us at a gut level, like we're not thinking that, but it hits us at a gut level, that this was wrong, that the Nevada State Democratic Party shouldn't be doing this. And so we started blogging about it, and through BlogPack sent 2,500 emails to Tom Collins, the creepy Mormon chair of the Nevada State Democratic Party. And then, we started to make a big deal of it, and we started to bother people. And we started to bother people in the Nevada State Democratic Party. Local Nevada blogs were outraged as well. And Move On, the next day, and Robert Greenwald came out with the video on Outfoxed, and how Fox isn't a neutral, open, fair news outlet, but is in fact a GOP propaganda arm. It's not a conservative news outlet. It's a GOP get out the vote machine. And the intellectual rationale for what we were doing, for the role of media in a democracy, really animated the arguments that were made. And so Move On came out with a petition, and Robert Greenwald came out with some content that was really great. And we started to bother Harry Reid, and we started to bother the Democratic Party presidential candidates. And when I say we, I mean local activists on the ground in Nevada, like Nevada State Democratic Party members who had never had any power started to complain and to make arguments about the Nevada State Democratic Party. So when we're talking about the blogs, what we're actually talking about is the people taking power over their institutions, the stakeholders of our institutions, and we're just sort of a representation of that, as is Move On, as are a lot of the groups that we're working on, including Democracy for America and various others. So what we really found, as eventually we convinced the Democratic Party presidential candidates to drop out, and then eventually we bothered Harry Reid's office enough, and we got surrogates like Paul Begala to come out, and pollster Mark Mellman come out, who then he gave us this sort of astonishing stat that Fox News audience is 88% Bush voters, which is the single most concentrated Republican voting bloc in the country, more than gun owners, more than white evangelicals, more than, I think, self-identified conservatives.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally a GOTV machine for the Republican Party. We got these people to come out, and I say we, but I mean all of us. And the Nevada State Democratic Party had no choice but to cancel the debate. A few days later, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, well, again, I mean, I'm clapping for me, but all of you should all of you should clap for me as well. So a few days later, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, which is where the CBC sometimes hides corporate money, It sometimes doesn't, but it's one of those institutions which is mixed, as are many of our institutions. But they signed a deal with Fox News to host a Republican and a Democratic Party presidential debate. Now, the Republican Party believes that news is propaganda. Like, they actually believe this. It's their idea. It's how they think about power and democracy in their world. But we don't. And so we started to organize again, and it was Color of Change and Black bloggers that took the lead on that. And that started to go through African American media. That was also supported by the rest of the blogosphere and Move On and various others, making arguments that, again, Fox News, and Robert Bumo came out with another film, which is Fox News Attacks Black America, and Fox News Attacks Obama. I mean, it's really sort of stunning, the racist stereotypes that Fox perpetuates. And all the networks perpetuate incredibly amazing, artistic, awful, racist stereotypes. But Fox News really brings it to another level. I actually sometimes think the right is just about performance art, not about politics, just because it's so unbelievable. But the point is that argument was being made through video, through audio, but just mostly through networks of people that were unhappy with how the CBC Institute, just like the Nevada State Party leadership, was out of step with its stakeholders. And so through basically bothering enough channels, sending emails and letters in, and trying to get the presidential candidates to drop out, who did. John Edwards dropped out first. Barack Obama dropped out, and Hillary Clinton eventually dropped out as well. What we were doing, and I say we again, I mean collectively, is we were reforming the institutions, the places where ideas live, which some institutions are small, like Harry Reid's office, right? We empowered the people that believe in our ideas of media, and disempowered the people who were telling him, no, you have to do this with Fox News, because we have to reach out to people who won't vote for us. Those are the people that got disempowered. And we changed in some small way the Nevada State Democratic Party and how the Congressional Black Caucus thinks about the political system. We sparked a debate in the media. This was in Ad Age, which is a really important trade publication. It was also all over the mainstream media. Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes came out. Well, one of the parts of the fight that I really liked is when we were saying Fox News is not a neutral news outlet, and they issued a press release about how left-wing extremists were taking over the party, thereby proving our point. Because what kind of news organization sends out a hit piece on a political faction, one that's not a news outlet? And so we were changing, and the culture of the Democratic Party itself, and we were embedding the idea of the role of media in a democracy in these various institutions. And so that's what really the blogs are about. I don't think it's just the blogs. I think the blogs are just what we see. It's on a screen, and it's very visible. But there are millions of people around the country that are actually working on this. And what we're finding is that when an institution, and at this particular moment in history, most of our institutions, the leadership is out of step with the stakeholders in that institution. And when it gets too out of step, that's like kind of kindling for internet organizing, but really what we're talking about is people coming together, people power, organizing around clear goals and strategies and credible information. So it's a traditional pragmatic response to a breakdown of our political and economic system. That's when blogospheres and internet organizing and just community organizing can take off and really seize power. So as we think over the next 30 years, really what we're talking about is a different political system. We're going to march through, and it's already seeing it happen. I say there's millions more people. Our churches, our military, both political parties, our educational institutions, unions, corporations, and it's not going to look like it looks. It's not going to look like it looks today. It's not going to be this wonderful liberal paradise. But it's going to be a country that's more in step, more in tune with the ideas and the concerns of traditional or the average American voter. So that's kind of how I see blogs. It's that institutional, the response to institutional betrayal. And if you go back to the founding of the internet, that's really what you'll find. People who created the internet, that's how they thought about this medium. So anyway, that's really the point is to understand that what we're really doing as a movement is arguing for ideas. And this is one of the places where we're arguing for ideas. Ideas are important. The candidates that carry those ideas are among our most valuable possessions. But all of us are important, and we need to keep doing it. The last point I'll make, I'm going to end on a vindictive note. Oliver, I'll take slight issue with one of the things Oliver said. They said that the right-wing blogs aren't powerful because the leadership doesn't listen to them. And I actually think that they're not powerful because their ideas are bad, and you can see that because their institutions where those ideas live are collapsing. And both their ideas are bad, and they themselves have been revealed as I had to write this one down, childish, hypocritical, sadistic perverts. And, you know, I'll get closer to the microphone. Childish, hypocritical, sadistic perverts. And that's just, it's really what's happened to their party. And it's our job to argue for our ideas. And there we go.
I know we're very short on time, and I really hate to put this question on the table before I open it up for questions, but we've talked some very good ideas about what the blogosphere needs to do. The elephant in the room is money.
The elephant in the White House.
But, and what I'd like to know, and this is something that I certainly don't know the answer to, but if we could, if one or two of the panelists in a soundbite, which I know is anathema to most of you guys, but in a soundbite, can you talk about what we can do, those of us in this room, to sort of provide more financial and other types of support? Are there ways that we can mobilize, things that we can do to make sure that you guys have the resources to do what you do?
The ultimate low-risk way to help fund the progressive blogosphere and not mussy up your hands with the nasty things we might say one little bit is to buy advertisements on progressive blogs. The most common service currently in use is blog ads, but I believe there are other services, and just purchasing ads on the blogosphere will help get things forward. A second thing to do would be to contribute to BlogPack, which Matt and I run, but I just wanted to push that out there. Anyways, yeah.
My indirect suggestion on this one is to support public financing of campaigns. Figuring that we're big supporters, most everybody here is, but again, there's nothing better than freeing up a little extra cash for some of the other good work that's being done out there, and public financing helps everybody in this country, and it's a very, very cost-effective way of cleaning up our political system.
Let me throw it open for questions, starting with the woman here.
I'd just like to make a comment on how powerful. Okay, I'd just like to make a comment on how powerful blogs are and how they can change things. About 2 years ago, a blogger by the name of Maura Kenny, and she goes under the blog name of Maura in VA, Maura in Virginia.
She's more NCT now.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to Connecticut.
She had read all of the legislation and all the bills that were going before the Virginia Assembly. And all of a sudden, she saw one that was so dangerous that she could not let it go by. And she got on the blog and was against it, and she got all the other bloggers around the country, and there was just thousands and thousands and thousands of responses to that, and she got the assemblyman to withdraw his bill.
All right. Thank you for that. Please keep your questions and your comments short. The person here in the, yeah, you, and then we'll get to the man in the back.
Yeah, just a question. Since progressivism isn't really a line of parties above that,
Yeah.
what kind of transpartisan conversation or results are you seeing in the blogosphere to actually push policy and governance forward?
Like Matt?
I actually run something, or helped start something for the Sunlight Foundation, which helps transparency in government, called the Open House Project, which was a collaborative discussion with bloggers on the right and the left and open government groups, and even the Heritage Foundation, where I was giving a presentation on it, to identify places where the House of Representatives could make their content more accessible to Web 2.0. And it was really successful. And it was all done online, and it was all transparent, and it was about bringing together a community that hadn't thought of itself as a community, which are open government groups, onto the internet in a place where they could talk about what they wanted to get done, and then infusing it with political power. So there's tremendous capacity for governance here. But we have the crisis in our political system to deal with first.
With the emphasis on ideas, I worry that maybe values aren't being talked about and appreciated. Almost any issue that you can talk about comes under the heading of, this is another example of what the most morally corrupt administration of modern times is doing. And you know, it seems to me that the thing that's most remembered from the first Bush, and Gore debates is Bush just sat there and said integrity. He didn't present ideas and programs as much as integrity. Everybody knew what that meant. I think I would like to see, let me ask you this. You're in it every day, I'm not. Do you see the value of propaganda, idea of values, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to like, well, under healthcare we would like such?
Yeah, I see it. Oliver, you want to take that?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I personally don't like talking about just one issue, like healthcare this, and environment this. It's all part of, like you said, one gigantic value system. And it's basically explaining that our values are superior and better and greater for America, and that they're destructive. And essentially, it's just, to me, it's sort of just repeating that mantra over and over again and explaining to people how destructive their ideas are and how much our ideas build up. And it's not just that we should do it, you guys should do it too. Your statement made a lot of sense. You can start a blog tomorrow.
That's it, right on.
I want to make sure this,
Angela Canterbury, I want to thank Jim very much for mentioning public funding elections. I would like to know that we actually have a vehicle for that in the Senate. It's been introduced by Senator Durbin. We have a hearing tomorrow. It's the first hearing on public financing of elections in more than a decade. It's S1285. Everybody get on board. We can push this through and make this a platform for progressive movement. So all of our ideas and all of our people get elected.
thank you. Gentleman here.
I have a question for you. In terms of starting these blogs, I wonder if each one of you could maybe give us like this one thing you did that got more people coming into your site. What did you do that made that work?
I'm going to challenge you guys to see if you can keep it to 1 or 2 sentences max.
When I started on MightAD, it took off and for 2 reasons. First, we had comprehensive polling analysis leading up to the 2004 election that was, I have no hesitation saying this, superior to what you will find in any established news medium. And the thing, that sort of big controversy that we became the center of that brought people on was we were the center of claiming that Gallup and other polls during the 2004 campaign were including too many Republicans in their survey samples.
We're a little bit of a different organization. We're very much about on-the-ground political activism. So what works for us in general, from a communication blogging standpoint, is anything that really invites or encourages or facilitates an actual action step by anybody in our community. That's what gets people's attention, that's what gets people excited, and that's what gets people blogging.
What works for me is brash, opinionated tomfoolery. Brash, opinionated tomfoolery.
And he's very good at it. We listened to the people showing up in our comments section and heard what they had to say about what they wanted to hear about, and we wrote about that.
Focus on very narrowly on one topic or several topics. I've written probably 150 or 200 posts just about net neutrality and the politics of it. So that gets a lot of telecom lobbyists and various other people reading it.
There's a woman here.
Matt, but perhaps someone else can talk about the complicated relationship for bloggers joint campaigns.
Sure, but first I want to mention that NBC and MSNBC are owned by a company that's like a big defense contractor. So just in terms of talking about conflicts of interest, it's important to be aware of a larger context. I'm starting a defense contracting business also. That's the new site.
Defense.
You know, it's not necessarily that hard a question, but it's kind of like if you disclose what you do, it seems sort of reasonable. I mean, if you're talking about credibility of the blogger, it's more likely that the blogger, if they do something stupid or unethical, is going to hurt the candidate than it is that they're going to hurt themselves. But one of the things that you'll notice, there's a sort of a natural editorial filter going on in the blogs where people who are credible tend to be respected. When I get something wrong, you know, I get accused of having secret agendas all the time, and so I have to correct it. And that's just a constant pressure that all of us face all the time. And so you see there's kind of a natural system that works that out a little bit. And I think candidates who aren't thinking just ethically, it's not an issue of blogger ethics, it's just thinking ethically, tend to screw things up, and those that are thinking ethically tend to do them, tend to be fine. So I don't think it's a particularly difficult question. I just think we're in a sick political system right now.
Unfortunately, it's 10:45 and we have to end the formal panel discussion. Please give our panelists a big hand.